Okay, let's see what we're doing here. Okay, we got a little more time left, I guess. Jim Samples wants to know, Bill, do you get the feeling the entire reason Hillary started this business about fake news is so that the idea of fake news gets spread so easily that we no longer know if we're being sold as true or not? It sounds like a good way to call everything a conspiracy theory and dismiss it, even the real, as in Room 101. Jim, Hillary Clinton didn't need to invent cover 2 days or 3 days after the election last year. Hillary Clinton's had cover her entire life. Hillary Clinton her foundation has taken hundreds of millions of dollars. 10% of what they take in, they spend on charity. The other 90% goes to buy things like their daughter's wedding. Hillary Clinton doesn't need to do something to start the status quo she doesn't need to spin up something with the fake news thing in order for people to not believe her. She had those privileges 30 years ago, 40 years ago, probably. Confronted every day now with stories of how, and the Donna Brazile book has a lot to do with that, where everybody knew how sick she was during the campaign, and armies of reporters and nobody reporting on it. And there's one of these guys, is it Jake Tapper? I think it's Jake Tapper. And he's on election night, and he's looking at the big board, and they're saying, well, what's the situation? And Jake Tapper says, well, first of all, we need to get Pennsylvania. I mean, Hillary Clinton needs to capture Pennsylvania. Without Pennsylvania, there's no way Hillary Clinton can win. He did it like 3 or 4 times. So she had the news on her side. I think Hillary Clinton was so desperate for an excuse that she basically grabbed at fake news because maybe somebody said that, maybe the whole thing about her having Parkinson's is wrong. I suspect it is wrong. So maybe she heard about the Parkinson's thing and then she said, oh, okay, the reason I lost the election is because these fake news sites out there convince people I have Parkinson's. I don't have Parkinson's. I got something else, obviously, but it's not Parkinson's. And so I suspect she was clutching at anything she could get at psychologically. She certainly never has admitted or is likely to admit the reason why she lost the election, and that is because she's so thoroughly unpleasant. She's a pathological narcissist. She can't make that realization. She's just never going to make that realization. Not going to happen. So she has to find something. And 2 days, 3 days after the event, you saw her. I think that was when she first met it, when she was in purple, and Bill had a purple tie on. Color of royalty, by the way. I think if you'd looked at her when she made that first speech, she looked like she'd been crying and drinking for 3 days. And I suspect that's exactly what happened, without any sleep at all. And I think she just went out there and said, well, there's a lot of reasons why I lost. And, Hillary Clinton is basically doing what is very tempting to do under any circumstances. But basically, she's blaming the loss on the referee. No, we got 2 bad calls. If we hadn't had those 2 bad calls, we would have won the game. No. If your margin of victory is not greater than 2 bad calls, then it's not a super big margin of victory, is it, right? I mean, and that's the world. That's the way the world works. If you don't like the fact that you were deprived of the victory because the referee called, 2 incomplete passes when they were actually caught, then you should have won by more than 14 points. That's all I have to say. Because that's how football is played. That's the game. People make bad calls. Sometimes it happens. Sometimes it appears that they're doing it on purpose. I suspect on some occasions it actually is done on purpose. But by and large, those are the rules. So those are the rules. I think she just came up with it. And I think the Russian thing is something that she was desperately hanging on to. And I think, when we think about, you hear things like your question, for example, do you think it was all part of this master scheme to do this? My experience, Jim, is that these people just aren't that smart. They're just not. Every time I hear about this person's pulling the strings or this person's running the levers of power, it's like, have you met these people? I've met some of these people. They're not that smart. And by the way, no one's that smart. Situation's far too complex for that. So when is this a big plan of Hillary's? No, Hillary doesn't make plans on how to influence society. First of all, she didn't have to. She's already got people behind her covering for because of their ideology, because they've been fed this ideology for 40 years and we haven't done anything about it. We haven't done anything to counter the message. So that's why the press is so biased, because it's how they grew up. Those are the values they learned, just like anybody else. And we let it happen, watch it get worse and worse every year. We're watching it worse and worse every year now, and we're still not doing anything. So there's your government you deserve. All of us. But I don't think so. I think the fake news boomeranged on her in a big way, because once I never heard the term used before, but once she said fake news, then that opened up the gates. It's almost like a witness in one criminal case blurting out something about another case, and that opens the door for the prosecution to get in there and start talking about the previous murder that this guy had committed, but that they're not allowed to bring up in order to preserve the integrity of that case. But if that guy opens the door and starts talking about it, now they can rush in. I think that's what happened with Hillary. I think she's just reaching for straws. Oh, fake news. And now CNN is the home of fake news. And one of the few bright spots out there is we are definitely seeing more young people mocking these liberals and just calling them, libtards and all the rest of this stuff. She doesn't need to start a conspiracy theory right now, Jim. She's had one for quite a long time.